right, thank you, Chairman Perry, Ranking Member Titus, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify regarding FEMA's efforts in response to Hurricanes Helene and Milton. We value this committee's legislative support and oversight of our agency, and I really look forward to our conversation today. On September 26th, Hurricane Helene made landfall in Florida as a powerful, fast-moving Category 4 storm with hurricane force winds extending 40 miles and tropical storm force winds extending 310 miles from its center. Helene then entered Georgia as a Category 2 hurricane before becoming a powerful tropical storm that continued to release historic rainfall over already saturated soils as it marched through South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia. There were also impacts in West Virginia and Kentucky. Helene's powerful winds and floodwaters altered landscapes and devastated communities in many places not accustomed to experiencing such storms. The destruction caused by Helene was catastrophic. Less than 2 weeks later, Hurricane Milton rapidly intensified into a Category 5 storm in the Gulf of Mexico. After making landfall in Florida as a Category 3, it moved across the state into the Atlantic, spurring a formation of tornadoes and leaving an overlapping trail of destruction in many communities still reeling from Hurricane Helene and Debbie. Many of these same communities were still recovering from Ian, Adelia, and Debbie from previous years. Our hearts have been heavy with the stories of survivors we have encountered. People who lost their loved ones, their homes, and their businesses. These two catastrophic storms led to the loss of over 200 lives and caused extensive damages to homes and neighborhoods across the impacted states. There was also widespread disruption of critical services across the southeastern United States, including the obstruction of transportation routes, which isolated some homes and communities. FEMA's mission statement is a simple one, spelled out in 7 powerful words: helping people before, during, and after disasters. And in my written testimony, I have provided a detailed account of FEMA's preparation, pre-positioning of assets and personnel, and coordination with other federal agencies in support of our state, local, and tribal partners. I have described in detail how FEMA responded to these 2 storms across 8 states, mobilizing the full weight of the federal government to help impacted areas that were not accustomed to this kind of disaster, prioritizing search and rescue efforts, reopening roads to reconnect hard-to-reach areas, delivering essential food, water, and other supplies to residents, and restoring critical infrastructure. And I have described how FEMA is leading recovery efforts in the impacted states, doing everything we can to cut through red tape and expedite assistance to survivors. This has been a challenging time for our workforce of over 22,000 dedicated, hardworking people, many of whom were also impacted by one of these storms themselves and delayed their personal and family recovery to meet our mission and respond to the disaster. Our workforce persevered through all of the challenges I've just described, and they also persevered through a difficult security environment generated by misinformation about FEMA's work spread through social media. We help all survivors, all people, obtain all of the assistance that they are qualified for under the law, and misinformation was making that work much more difficult. I greatly appreciate the voices from members of Congress from across both sides of the aisle who has attested to the work that FEMA was doing on the ground. So I was very concerned when I learned that a FEMA employee had given direction to her disaster survivor assistance team that were completely at odds with FEMA's mission. A critical function of these teams is to go door to door, meet with survivors, meet them where they are, make them aware of available FEMA resources, and help them register for assistance. This employee wrote to about 11 staffers under her supervision that they should, quote, avoid homes advertising Trump, end quote. My senior leadership team provided me with this visual evidence that the employee had in fact issued this statement, these instructions, and they recommended that this employee be terminated. I concurred and directed the termination, and the employee was fired. I released a statement that day, and I will repeat what I said to all of my employees and the American people. This type of behavior and action will not be tolerated at FEMA, and we will hold people accountable if they violate our standards of conduct. I do not believe that this employee's actions are indicative of any widespread cultural problems at FEMA. FEMA, however, has taken appropriate action to ensure that this matter is fully investigated, and I am committed to ensuring that nothing like this ever happens again. In the meantime, we have sent a different team to the field to contact all of the homes that had been skipped over at this one employee's direction, and that work has been completed. Now, I know that this incident is on the minds of many members of this committee, and I will be happy to answer all of your questions about it. However, I hope that we will also have a chance to discuss the great work of our workforce and responses to both Hurricanes Helene and Milton, as well as the important challenges that lie ahead in the recovery effort across these states. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify today, and I look forward to your questions.